Hi, everyone. I'm Gwen Seal. I'm an entertainment lawyer in Austin, and I want to briefly talk to y'all about the current mechanical royalty rate proceeding that is ongoing at the Copyright Royalty Board that is setting the mechanical royalty rates for songwriters from 2023 to 2027. Now, for the first time in quite a long time, about 10 years to be exact, a public comment period is open whereby interested parties like songwriters can submit comments to the Copyright Royalty Board to just let these judges know what they think about the streaming mechanical royalties and just how all of this is impacting you. So this is a perfect time to make your voice heard. And I'm going to just briefly touch on what the Copyright Royalty Board is, background on mechanical royalties, what these new rates might look like, and also show y'all how to submit a public comment to the Copyright Royalty Board. Let me share my screen now. Awesome. So first off, what is the Copyright Royalty Board? Just understand that this is a forum that is convened in the Library of Congress and consists of 3 judges. And what these judges do is they determine the terms and royalty rates applicable to statutory licenses under the Copyright Act, like the mechanical license. Now, these proceedings set royalty rates for 5-year terms. So what we're talking about here are the mechanical royalty rates for the next 5 years, i.e. 2023 to 2027. On a fun note, this is not like a traditional court. There's no jury. These proceedings don't follow the federal rules of civil procedure or the federal rules of evidence. So ultimately, you're kind of talking about a Wild West kind of court situation. Now, just a brief overview, this proceeding pertains to Section 115 of the Copyright Act, which pertains to the mechanical right, which is the right to reproduce and distribute a song in audio format. So this occurs when music is streamed interactively. So when music is streamed on Spotify or Apple, or when music is downloaded, like on iTunes, or when physical sales occur, so selling CDs or vinyl. So in all of those cases, mechanical royalties accrue and are owed to songwriters and music publishers. And again, the Copyright Royalty Board sets these royalty rates. Right here, just to reiterate, we are talking about mechanical royalties. We're not talking about performance royalties or any of the royalties on the master side. We're talking about mechanical royalties, which you will see circled right here. And just to ensure that everyone's on the same page, in order to get paid your mechanicals from streaming, if you don't have a music publisher, you don't have a publishing administrator, you collect those royalties from the Mechanical Licensing Collective. So let's talk about this proceeding. So you have in this proceeding the publisher and songwriter representatives. You have the NSAI, Nashville Songwriters Association International, the NMPA, the National Music Publishers Association, and then you also have George Johnson, who is a songwriter in Nashville, and he is participating in this proceeding pro se. Now, typically in these Copyright Royalty Board proceedings, you have the largest trade organizations and companies that participate because it's just really time consuming, it's costly. But one thing to note is that songwriters can actually participate themselves pro se. And honestly, God bless George, because I wouldn't wish this upon anyone because it's just so much work, so much procedure. You have to have, a really in-depth knowledge of copyright. And I mean, these proceedings are just really not fun. Now, in this proceeding, just understand that it was bifurcated, meaning that the proceeding was separated into 2 parts. So one part of the proceeding, we're dealing with the mechanical royalty rates for physical products and digital downloads. And those mechanical royalties are paid out by the labels. And so the label representatives in that part of the proceeding are the majors. Now, I think it's worth just briefly touching on this part of the proceeding because it really showed the power that the public has with these public comments, because it was the public comments and George Johnson participating pro se, that were able to really like make a mark and make the judges, act and actually end up increasing the mechanical royalties on the physical and download side. So essentially back in May of 2021, the NSAI and NMPA, the publisher-songwriter representatives, they entered into a settlement with the major labels, submitted it to the Copyright Royalty Board, and that settlement called for the mechanical royalty rate for physical products and downloads to be continued at 9.1 cents per song per record sold through 2027. And mind you, the rate has been 9.1 cents since 2006. So naturally, a lot of songwriters were really upset because why should this rate be frozen? For 16 years, that's pretty ridiculous, given that we're dealing with worldwide pandemic, unprecedented inflation in the last half century. We're dealing with a vinyl resurgence. So, I mean, it just honestly didn't make sense. It wasn't fair, but because you had George who objected to that settlement, and you had a lot of songwriters, independent music publishers, and music lawyers who submitted comments saying, look, judges, this is absolutely not fair, and just laid out their simple arguments that, this has just been a frozen rate for 16 years and songwriters deserve better and every penny counts. It really moved the needle. And in a truly unprecedented move, the judges actually ended up rejecting that settlement. And by doing so, it forced the NMPA and NSAI and the majors to go back to the table and come up with a new deal. And so they did. They proposed a 12-cent rate per song per record sold in 2023, with then the 2024 to 2027 mechanical royalties then being adjusted via the Consumer Price Index to account for inflation. So we'll see what happens with that, but I'm just kind of giving you all that background because it just shows that, look, these public comments really can move the needle. So the part of the proceeding that we're really talking about here today relates to the part dealing with streaming. And so on the other side of the table from the publishers and songwriters, you have the largest commercial services in the world: Spotify, Google, Apple, Amazon Music, Pandora. And so, with this proceeding, it's honestly been pretty lively, pretty dramatic. Some of the most insane discovery requests I've ever seen. And it was very, very contentious. And so it honestly came as quite a surprise to myself and other people following this, that the publisher and songwriter representatives ended up entering into a settlement with the services that settled these rates for 2023 to 2027. So just a little bit of procedure here. Whenever a settlement is submitted to the Copyright Royalty Board, that then triggers a public comment period whereby for 30 days, interested parties can submit a comment about what they think about the settlement and things related to the settlement. And so by these parties entering into a settlement and submitting it to the Copyright Royalty Board, that has then opened up this public comment period. And the public comment period ends on December the 7th. So I know, we're talking about 8 days or so, a little over a week, but that's plenty of time to just write, just even a short comment about how the streaming mechanical royalty rates affect you as a songwriter. Let's get to the next slide. So I imagine you're looking at this slide and you're like, I have no idea what this means. And you know what? That's fine. And honestly, that might be something you want to bring up in your comment if you submit one. That, none of this really makes sense. That there's no per stream rate that most people would think there's a per stream rate for things, but not in the case of mechanical royalties for streaming. So I think that what would really help is to just show y'all how absolutely complex and convoluted and just Rube Goldberg-like calculating mechanical royalties from streaming is. So mind you, this 20-step process with lots of greater ofs and lesser ofs, this only applies to one type of streaming service tier. So there are different calculations based on whether a streaming service is ad-supported or subscription-based, or if we're talking about the version of Spotify you're using on your phone versus what is, used on your portable or on your desktop. So, ultimately here, in order to calculate mechanical royalties, you have to come up with the all-in royalty pool. And so these calculations are done every month. And so for the month, you first figure out, these streaming services figure out, what is the all-in royalty pool? And so it triggers this greater of calculation. And so here you have 15.1% of the music services revenue. And so that would be for 2023. Then 2024, that would then increase to 15.2%, all the way up through 2027, which would increase to 15.35%. So you have that calculation. Then there's this lesser of calculation based on, a cent per subscriber per month rate, or the amount that these services pay the record companies. So then from there, that all-in pool that is calculated based on this greater of, the performance royalties that are expensed over the given period of time are taken out of there. And then there is one more greater of calculation. Then you end up with the payable royalty pool that is then used as the numerator. Then the total number of plays or streams is the denominator. Then you end up with the royalty per stream per play rate, which, you're probably like, I still don't understand any of this. That's fine. Honestly, not very many people do. And when you ask people, why is it like this? They're like, well, it's just been like this. And, there's never really any sort of great explanation as to why. So honestly, if you're submitting a comment and you're thinking, this is just way too confusing, I've never understood my royalty statements that I get from my publisher from the MLC, this might be worth bringing up. So what's next? The comment period. So in just a second, I will show y'all how to register as a commenter on the Copyright Royalty Board website. And you might be thinking to yourself, well, I don't really know what I would say. There are various things that you could say. Anything from, these calculations to determine what mechanical royalties should be, what these rates should be, are just, honestly really confusing. If you feel like this process needs to be more transparent, that there needs to be more seats at the table, then bring that up too. If maybe you were not consulted about this, I don't know, maybe y'all are part of some of these trade organizations that, come to the settlement terms, and maybe they talk to y'all about this, or maybe you're not, and so you had no idea. So, those are just some ideas that I have here. And in addition, so one thing that I'm planning on bringing up in my comment, because I've submitted several of these comments in the past, and one thing that another lawyer here in town is going to be bringing up here too, is that just like on the physical and download side, how there is going to be a cost of living adjustment to the physical and download mechanical royalties, that there should thus be a cost of living adjustment incorporated into this payable royalty pool. So then that way, as inflation continues to rise and the value of the dollar continues to decrease, there is some sort of protection mechanism in there built in. So then that way, that helps out as inflation just keeps ravaging the economy. So, those are just some of my thoughts. I mean, just say what you think. Just make your voice heard. And if you have questions about any of this, feel free to let me know. I know that this is just a lot of information and is very confusing. And honestly, most lawyers don't get it. And, I wouldn't be able to calculate this myself. So, don't feel bad if you don't understand that. So what I'm going to do next is show y'all how to actually register with the Copyright Royalty Board to submit a comment. So let's do that here. So what you're going to do is go to this website, app.crb.gov. And so when you go there, you are going to see this homepage. From there, what you're going to do is click on register for an account. So just click on agree and continue. You'll click continue here. Then they'll ask you for your account type. You're going to be wanting to file a comment, so you'll click on file documents. And then what you'll do here is what do you need to do? Comments only, because you're just filing a comment. And then click continue. And then from there, you'll just put in your name, address information, and all of that. And then, they'll ask you to set up like a username and password, and you will be done. One thing that I will also do is have Pat share with y'all a very short blog post from Chris Castle's Music Tech Policy that writes out the various instructions to register to submit a comment with the Copyright Royalty Board. So with all of that said, I hope that this has been helpful. And seriously, I mean, this chain of events has not occurred in 10 years. And so, it's been a very long time since people have been able to submit a comment to these judges about the streaming mechanical royalty rates. And I just really think that it's important for as many voices to be heard as possible, because most people don't know that the Copyright Royalty Board exists. And I mean, I don't blame them. It's a pretty exclusive playing field that is great for lawyers. The services, and there's 38 lawyers that they have. And, I think that I think the judges really appreciate hearing from songwriters, people who will actually be impacted by the judges' decisions. So I hope that y'all have a great rest of your day. And feel free to reach out to me at gwen@miketolleson.com if you have any other questions about this. Thank you.